All right, so today we're going deep, deep into personal finance, but with a twist.
Ooh, a twist. I like twists.
Right. So we're diving into, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
I love that book.
It's so good, and it's not like your typical how-to budget kind of thing. It gets into like the mental game, the psychology.
The stuff we don't always think about but really matters.
Totally. Like why, sometimes behavior, like really good behavior with money is more important than, being a financial genius.
Yeah, more than just being smart.
Right. Or how like everyone's personal history with money shapes how they see the whole financial world.
Everyone brings their own baggage. Right?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that crazy quote about the 0.00000000001% versus 80%.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. And of course, we have to talk about compounding, which like is financial magic.
It's the closest thing to magic, I think.
I know. And then like what does it even mean to have enough? When the world's always telling us we need more.
That's the real question, isn't it?
So first up, Housel, he says that being disciplined and patient, that actually gets you further than just like being smart about money.
It's about temperament, not just IQ.
Totally. Like I've definitely heard stories of, these brilliant people who just make like the worst financial decisions.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like they can't help themselves.
So like how does that actually like play out in real life?
Well, Housel, he has this great example, right? He compares someone who makes a ton of money but spends it all.
The big spender.
Yeah, like no savings, no investments, just splurging. Compared to like an average earner, maybe, who budgets, saves consistently. Who do you think ends up wealthier in the long run?
Probably the saver, right, even if they don't make as much.
Exactly. It's like slow and steady wins the race, but with money.
Yeah.
So it's like it shows that like nailing down those good daily habits, those are more important than, trying to outsmart the market.
That's interesting. But like, isn't there a risk of being too disciplined, What if you're so afraid to spend that you miss out on a good investment just because it feels a little risky?
Well, for sure. It's all about balance, like healthy habits are key, but you don't want to be paralyzed by fear. Calculated risks, I mean, those are part of growing your money.
Yeah, makes sense. So like smart habits, not just being like super cheap all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's talk about something else Housel talks about. He says our experiences with money, like our own personal histories, they shape how we see everything financial.
Oh, absolutely. Like think about your childhood, the economic environment you grew up in, even just the stories you heard about money, around the dinner table.
Family money stories.
Yeah, all those little things, even if they seemed insignificant then, they can like really impact how you handle money today. Like how you think about it, how you feel about it.
That's like those experiences become your like financial blueprint or something.
In a way, yeah.
Housel has this crazy quote about it, right? Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world, but 80% of how you think the world works.
Wow. Yeah, when you put it like that, it's kind of wild.
I know. It makes you realize like how limited our own little experiences are, but how much they shape our whole outlook on finances.
So true. It's a good reminder to like check those beliefs you have about money,
Yeah.
Deep down. Like, are you coming from a place of like scarcity, or do you see abundance? Are you afraid of risk, or are you more of a calculated gambler?
Risk averse or risk taker?
Right. Once you like figure out those underlying influences, you can start making more conscious choices.
Right.
Like decisions that are actually right for you, not just based on some like subconscious belief you've been carrying around.
So self-awareness is key. But can we talk about luck? Like it seems like even with good planning, sometimes it just comes down to luck or, things outside our control.
Oh, absolutely. Luck and risk, they're huge factors. Housel, he uses Bill Gates as an example, right? Brilliant guy, worked incredibly hard, but he was also super lucky.
In what way?
Well, think about it. He had access to a computer as a teenager, back when those were like super rare.
That is lucky, yeah. Not many people had that opportunity.
Exactly. Like that's a stroke of luck most people didn't have. It's like a good reminder that even if you put in all the effort, sometimes those external factors can make or break you.
So true. And on the flip side, like even with a perfect plan, risk can really mess things up. Like what about those big economic downturns or like a global pandemic?
Right, like no one saw that coming.
Totally. It's like, how do you even plan for that?
It's tough. But that's where compounding comes in. It's this amazing force, this concept that Housel calls like the eighth wonder of the world.
Okay, eighth wonder of the world. I'm intrigued.
Right. And it's all about how consistency and time can really work in your favor, even with all the uncertainty of luck and risk and all that.
Okay, so less about trying to time the market perfectly, which seems impossible.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's less about, trying to catch that perfect wave and more about riding this consistent wave of growth over time.
I like that analogy. So, like with compounding, you're not just earning money, you're earning money on your earnings.
Exactly. And then you're earning money on those earnings and so on. It creates this amazing, like, snowball effect.
It just keeps growing and growing. It's like that famous Warren Buffett quote about how he made most of his wealth after he turned 60, right? Like, all thanks to compounding.
He's the poster child for compounding. It shows that, like, time is your best friend when it comes to growing your money. Like, the earlier you start investing, even if it's just small amounts, the more time that money has to compound, to grow exponentially.
So start young, everyone, even if it's a few bucks. But, we've talked about all this growth, but Housel also brings up this interesting idea of enough. Like, when is it enough?
It's a really powerful concept, especially these days when, like, we're constantly told we need more, bigger, better.
More, more, more. It never ends.
Right. And it can be really hard to, like, define enough when the goalposts keep moving.
Totally. So how do we, like, figure out what enough is in this crazy world?
Well, Housel tells this story, right, about a billionaire who had, like, more money than he could ever spend, but he just kept taking huge risks trying to get more.
What happened?
He ended up losing everything. It's a cautionary tale. You know, it shows that, like, contentment matters. Recognizing that you've reached a point where you have genuine security, where you're financially stable. It's about appreciating that instead of constantly chasing after more.
Yeah, it's like that saying, enough is as good as a feast. But, like, I've been thinking about enough lately. It's so easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others, always wanting what they have, Like, I remember a time when I was living really simply, didn't have a lot of stuff, but I felt so content.
It's about finding that internal sense of satisfaction. Right?
Yeah, like I had enough back then.
And it's different for everyone. It's not about, like, a specific number or a certain level of possessions.
Yeah.
It's about, like, what truly brings you peace of mind, a sense of security. So how do we, like, break free from that cycle of always wanting more, more, more?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is, but it starts with defining what enough means for you. Not what society tells you, not what you see on social media, but what actually makes you feel secure and content.
Like having a nice home, being able to travel, providing for your family.
Exactly. Those are all great examples.
Yeah.
Once you have that clear vision, then you can make choices that align with that vision,
So you're not chasing after, like, some imaginary finish line that keeps moving.
Right. It's about getting off that hamster wheel.
Yeah, and finding a pace that actually feels good and sustainable.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big concept, long-term thinking. But you know what? I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay, yeah, we've covered a lot.
We have. From behavior to personal experiences to luck and risk, compounding, and even enough. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But hey, join us for part 2. We'll continue our deep dive into the psychology of money.
We will. There's so much more to uncover.
We'll explore more of Housel's insights, like saving for freedom, not just for emergencies, and how to avoid those traps of short-term thinking.
Yes. And we'll leave you with a question to think about. What personal experiences have shaped your view of money? Think about that until we're back.
Welcome back, everyone. Did you have a chance to, like, think about how your own experiences have shaped your views on money? It's wild how those early money memories stick with us.
They really do. It's fascinating. But moving on, let's talk about another big idea from the psychology of money. Housel talks about saving for freedom, not just for, like, emergencies.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. It really changes how you think about saving. It's not just about, that rainy day fund. It's about building this base of financial security that gives you choices, like real choices in life.
It's like that feeling of having a safety net, but then, like, it's bigger than that.
It is. It's about options.
Yeah, options.
Imagine this. You've got, like, a solid nest egg. You're not living paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed about bills. That financial cushion, it lets you make decisions based on what matters to you, not just out of like fear or desperation.
It's like you can say yes to things,
Exactly.
like maybe starting a business or, going back to school or even just taking time off to travel or be with family, without worrying about money.
Exactly. It's about having agency over your life.
Agency, yeah, that's a good word for it.
Think about it. How would having like more financial freedom, how would it change how you make decisions?
Hmm.
What opportunities would open up for you if you weren't always worried about money?
That's a good question. I think for me, it would be like having the flexibility to do more creative projects,
Yeah.
without worrying about if they'll like make money right away. What about you? What does that financial freedom look like in your life?
For me, it would be about traveling, seeing different parts of the world, without being limited by a budget or having the time and resources to like really invest in personal growth, well-being, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's cool how financial freedom can mean different things to different people, but like the core of it seems to be about security and feeling empowered. Like you can live more authentically.
Definitely. And that connects to another idea Housel talks about, which is the need for long-term thinking. Because, so often we make financial choices based on like how we feel in the moment or, we react to what the market's doing, which can lead to bad decisions.
Yeah, it's like that whole thing about panic selling when the market drops.
Like that.
People get scared, see their investments going down, and they react impulsively. They end up like locking in those losses. But if they just taken a breath, thought about the long term, they might have actually come out ahead in the end.
It's so true. It's like it's our emotions that get in the way. Housel, he's really big on like having a long-term strategy and sticking to it even when things get a bit rough. He said those emotional reactions to the market, those are the biggest obstacles to actually reaching your financial goals.
So it's about not like freaking out and selling everything when things dip.
Yeah, resist that urge to react impulsively, even when it feels like everyone else is losing their minds.
But how do you like actually develop that long-term mindset, especially in a world where everyone wants everything, like right now, instant gratification and all that?
Well, I think it starts with like really understanding your goals
Hmm.
and your risk tolerance, like what are you actually saving for? How much volatility are you comfortable with? Once you have a clear picture of like where you want to go and how bumpy a ride you're willing to take, then you can build a plan and stick to it even when the market throws a tantrum.
It's like you need a roadmap for your money, but it can't be like set in stone, right? Life happens.
Exactly. You need a plan, but it has to be flexible. Life changes, your goals might change, and your plan needs to adapt with you. It's not about setting it and forgetting it. It's about regularly checking in with yourself, making adjustments as you need to, and staying engaged with your finances.
Engaged, but not like obsessively checking your portfolio every 5 minutes, right?
Right, exactly. You don't want to drive yourself crazy. It's about finding that balance between staying informed and not getting lost in all the noise. You know, understand the basics of investing. Maybe get advice from someone you trust and make decisions that feel good for the long haul.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like informed, but not overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Which leads to another important point Housel makes, the difference between wealth and richness. Like those words get used interchangeably, but he says they're actually different.
Oh, they are completely different. Richness, as Housel defines it, is like what you see, right? The fancy cars, the designer clothes, the big house. It's about showing off what you have. Wealth is different. It's more about like what you don't see.
What you don't see.
Right. It's about financial security, the assets you've built, the freedom you've created for yourself.
Like it's that feeling of security, of having options.
Exactly. Housel says it perfectly. Wealth is the income you haven't spent. Wealth is financial assets that haven't been converted into the stuff you see.
Wow, that's a good one. So it's like it's more about substance than like flashy stuff.
Exactly. And it's a good question to ask yourself. Are you focused on building that real wealth, that solid foundation for the future, or are you more caught up in looking rich, trying to keep up with everyone else?
Yeah, like building a strong house versus just putting on a fancy facade. One actually provides shelter, the other's just for show. But, we've talked about having a plan, being disciplined, all that. But what about those unexpected things that happen? Like things you can't really plan for.
Oh yeah, that's where tail risks come in.
Tail risks, okay.
These are those events that are like unlikely to happen, but if they do, they can have a huge impact, positive or negative.
Okay, so like low probability, high impact kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like imagine sailing along smoothly, then bam, a rogue wave hits, or, you stumble upon a treasure chest. It's like those black swan events that can shake things up.
So they can be good or bad. It's a little scary.
It is, because you can't really predict them. But think about the 2008 financial crisis. That was a tail risk, a rare event, but when it hit, it wiped out trillions of dollars globally. Or, on the flip side, think about the rise of Amazon and these huge tech companies. No one saw that coming, but those who invested early, they made a fortune.
So it's like you can't avoid them completely, but you can prepare for them somehow.
Right, and the way to do that is through diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
And then be adaptable. Be ready to change course if needed.
Okay, diversification I get, but what does adaptability actually look like, when it comes to your finances?
It's about being willing to shift your strategy as the world changes. Have a plan, but don't be so rigid that you miss opportunities or, can't adjust when things change. Let's say you're heavily invested in a certain industry, and that industry suddenly faces some major disruption. That's a tail risk. You need to be ready to adapt.
Right, don't be afraid to adjust your sails when the wind changes.
Exactly.
But even with the best planning, it seems like there's always going to be some uncertainty in the financial world.
There is, and that's why, one of the most valuable things I learned from Housel is to be humble
Yeah.
and adaptable. We can't predict everything. We're going to make mistakes, even with all the knowledge and planning in the world.
So don't get too cocky. It's a constant learning process.
It is. Be a lifelong student of the game, always learning and adjusting. Embrace the fact that the financial world is complex. Be willing to learn from those mistakes, ask for advice when you need it, and keep adapting as things change. It's not about having all the answers. It's about admitting what you don't know and being open to learning and growing.
That's a good reminder. So we covered saving for freedom, long-term thinking, the difference between wealth and richness, and those unpredictable tail risks. A lot of good stuff.
We did. But the biggest takeaway, I think, is that being good with money, it's not just about understanding financial concepts. It's about understanding yourself,
Right.
how your own psychology affects the choices you make with money.
So know thyself and know thy finances.
Something like that, yeah.
And hey, if you want to dive even deeper into all this, check out Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. It's a really great read.
It is. It'll change how you think about money.
We'll be back for our last part to wrap up all this psychology of money. Goodness.
We will. But before we go, here's something to ponder. If financial freedom was, your main goal, what choices would you make differently? Think about that one.
So that question, about financial freedom and changing choices, it really makes you think about, priorities. What are we actually working towards?
It does, doesn't it? It's easy to, lose sight of the big picture when you're caught up in the day-to-day grind.
Totally. But he reminds us that those ups and downs in the market, they're normal. They're part of the whole process. There will be good times and bad times, but overall, the market tends to go up over time.
Right. History shows us that.
It's like that saying, time in the market beats timing the market.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Trying to predict the perfect moment to buy or sell, it's almost impossible. And you probably end up stressing yourself out and missing opportunity.
Exactly. It's you're more likely to lose trying to outsmart the market.
And I feel like that's even harder these days with so much financial news and opinions everywhere. It's everyone's a stock expert on social media now.
Oh, I know. It's overwhelming. Everyone's got a hot stock tip or some get-rich-quick scheme.
It's how do you even filter through all that noise?
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I think, the key is to focus on your own goals, your own strategy, your own definition of success. Because, what works for one person might be a disaster for someone else.
Right. It's personal.
It is. Tune out all that noise and trust the plan you've made for yourself, based on your own situation and what you want to achieve.
Okay, I like that. Tune out the noise, trust your plan. But, it's easy to get caught up in, just the numbers, how much money you have. But Housel, he talks about wealth being more than just money.
Oh, absolutely. He says it's about time, freedom, options, being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. It's about having control over your life.
That's a good way to put it. It's not just about your bank account. It's about, the richness of your experiences, the choices you have.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to make sure your financial decisions, they actually match up with your values and your goals.
Yeah.
If you're working a job you hate just to make more money, are you really wealthy? Or are you sacrificing your time and your happiness for for something that might not even make you happy in the end.
Yeah, that hits home. I've definitely been there. It's easy to think, oh, if I just made more money, I'd be happier. But sometimes it's more about like changing your whole relationship with work and money, Like, what are you working for? What you want your life to look like?
Right? Are your choices actually helping you get there?
Yeah, big questions. And sometimes like living your values might mean making some different choices, maybe downsizing your lifestyle, taking a job that pays less but you love, or even like starting a business even if it's a bit risky.
Exactly. It's about making choices that support your own definition of wealth,
Yeah.
not what society tells you it should be.
Okay, so taking control, making choices that align with your values. But like let's be real, things don't always go as planned. Life happens.
It does curveballs all the time.
Right. And that's where Housel's idea of like room for error comes in.
Oh, yes, that's a big one.
Like building in some buffer, some wiggle room in your financial plan because let's face it, we can't predict everything that's going to happen.
That's so true. And I love that he talks about this because it's like it's acknowledging that stuff happens. Unexpected expenses, market drops, life just throws stuff at you. And it's okay.
Yeah, like you're not a failure if things go off track a little.
Not at all. It's about having that financial cushion, that breathing room, so those bumps in the road don't like completely derail you.
It's like having an emergency fund, not taking on too much debt, maybe being a little more conservative with how much you think your investments will grow.
Exactly.
That
Because life is messy, right? And unpredictable.
Totally. So, room for error isn't just about your money, it's also about your mindset. Being a little kinder to yourself, realizing we're all human, we're going to mess up sometimes, and that's okay.
It is okay. You don't have to be perfect. Just learn from those mistakes, adjust, and keep going.
It's all about like the journey, right? Not just the destination. It's a constant process of learning and adapting and figuring out like what works for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a journey of growth, of figuring out your relationship with money.
Well said.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the psychology of money, I want to leave you with this. Money is a tool. It's a powerful tool, but it's just one part of the whole picture. What really matters is what you do with it, how you use it to create a life that has meaning and purpose and joy.
I love that. It's not about just piling up money, it's about using it to fuel your dreams, your passions, the things that make you you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of money. We hope you got something out of it.
We did.
Maybe a few aha moments along the way.
And remember, this whole financial well-being thing, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So be patient, keep learning, and most importantly, be kind to yourself.
Love it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.